With a $50,000, $500,000, and a $5 million salary, what kind of cash flowing business can you actually afford to buy? Because there's a really big myth out there in the world today. People think that you need to be uber rich and extremely wealthy to buy yourself a cash flowing business. All right, my only mission today is to prove to you that with any income level and some type of discipline with savings, you can go out and find and buy yourself a cash flowing business and get on the fast track to building yourself financial freedom. That's the game plan. And how we're gonna do this? We're gonna do this by following 3 amazing stories of my friends, what I like to call heroes in this narrative. And they are AJ, Hamilton, and Francesca. All 3 of them work very different jobs and have drastically different income levels, but I'm gonna show them that applying the 20% rule to their income, what kind of business that they actually can afford to buy. And this is no gimmick either. I found 3 real listings that fit within their price range that they can actually go out and buy today. If they wanted to. They better lock in and buy these businesses. So that's their job. But what's my role in all this? Well, let me first introduce myself. If you're new here, how's it going? My name's Skinny Finance. Welcome to the channel. And I was put on this earth to do 3 key things: find great businesses, buy great businesses, and help them grow. Plain and simple. And I've been doing that for 10 plus years at the best private equity firms on Wall Street, Blackstone and KKR. And my only mission is to take everything that I learned on Wall Street and give it away to you, Main Street, completely for free. That's the goal. So without further ado, let's dive into what kind of cash flowing business can you buy with your salary. Let's rock. Step 1, check the paper. We gotta understand what the heck we are working with here, Chief. Here's the game plan. When it comes to affordability, I like to follow a very simple rule called the 20% rule. And this rule touches on 2 very essential elements when it comes to thinking about buying cash flow business. Well, number 1, it touches on income, but then it also touches on leverage. So it's a 20% rule applied to both of those. Now let's dive into each. 20% rule for your income. This shows that whatever your income is, whether it's $1,000 or $1 million, you should have 20% of it saved up in a high-yield savings account or an index fund ready to go at any moment's notice for an opportunistic investment. Now I look, 20% of your income, you might not have it all in 1 year, you might not have it in 2 years. Take the time to cumulatively save up into an account for opportunistic investments like buying a business, 20% to be ready to rock and roll. So if I make $100,000 per year, I need to have the target of, before I even consider buying a business, I have $20,000 saved up for that initiative, all right? That's the 20% for your income rule. And it's very linked to this next one, 20% for leverage. And before we dive into the nitty gritty of the mechanics around the leverage, let me just paint a very simple picture and analogy of buying a business. Did you know that you can buy a business exactly like you buy a house? Stick with me here, all right? Now, when people go buy a home, they'll find a property, they'll look at the price, and they won't just pay 100% cash for that home. Instead, they'll typically put 5 to 10 to maybe 20% down to purchase that home. The remainder comes from a mortgage, from a bank. And what's super cool is that same lending strategy is available to buy a cash flowing business. And not many people know about this. That's why buying a business seems so unattainable for that many people, because they just don't understand that there are programs that exist that allow for people to go out and buy a business that's pretty cash flow using 20% down and the rest using a bank loan to purchase the business. It's kind of crazy, right? Like, it's literally a cheat code. And that program is called the SBA 7A loan program, and it's backed by the US government. It is essentially a mortgage to go buy a business that prints cash flow. Plain and simple. But how does it work? Your job is to find a business, a great business that is recession resilient, that is printing cash flow, and that you understand and know to operate it very well and successfully. And what happens is you then go to the owner and says, I am willing to buy your business at X, Y, and Z price, and I will put 20% down and use the rest of SBA funding to purchase that company. So if I find a business that is for $100,000, I personally will put up $20,000 to purchase that company, and then the SBA program will give me $80,000 to fund the rest of the acquisition. And then after it closes, I then own a business doing cash flow, and my responsibility is to continue to grow the company, pay down the interest on the SBA loan, and then collect the rest of the cash. And I can pay myself, I can hire employees, I can reinvest in the business, I can acquire another company. I love this. But the requirements for the SBA is that you need to have at least 10% of the purchase price as a down payment in equity and cash ready to go. But with more leverage, the interest payments are going to be higher, so I recommend folks to play it a little bit safer and put at least 20% down. So 20% of your income should be saved up in some type of high-yield savings account or index fund ready to go as a down payment on a business. Because if you put 20% down on the business, the rest you can get from SBA funding. So now that we know the funding dynamics and the income requirements for this buying a business journey, let's now tap into the hero journeys of AJ, Hamilton, and Francesca to showcase to them with their income brackets what kind of business can they actually buy. And let's start with everyone's favorite, AJ. Okay. Form an organized line, all right? Now, I know everyone's fired up for AJ. He was featured in one of our other videos on revenge savings where we showcased that he was this handsome, cool guy that was working a low-income 9-to-5, swimming in credit card debt, and he followed for 12 months an intense revenge savings plan to then save up enough money to get out of credit card debt, to build him a $10,000 plus investment portfolio, and he bought himself a house. Now, what's the next step in his journey that I outlined for him? It was to buy himself a business. So let's figure out for his income bracket, which is under $50,000 per year, what kind of business can he actually buy? And yes, he is still handsome and still single, so if you are interested, email me with serious inquiries only. And I'm his matchmaker, aka his cousin, aka his smart money financial advisor. All right, and since he has $10,000 of down payment, that's the 20%, the rest of the 80% will come from SBA. So with that math, what kind of business can he afford for $50,000? Let's take a look on Biz Buy Sell and try to find something that's right for him. Let's see what we got. Okay, so scrolling through a bunch of listings, this is a harder search because it's not that common you find really good cash flowing durable businesses under 50 grand. But I think we might have found something that is more like a side hustle, but it also prints cash flow. So let's look into this one. So we are all the way in Florida and we found ourselves a high-tech vending machine business that is asking $45,000 for a purchase price. That's within our price range. And it does annual revenue of around $38,000 per year. But here's the kicker. The kicker is that this business is doing $23,000 annually of cash flow. That is after the expenses, after paying your employees, the business brings home $23,000. That's like having a second job for him, but it's a passive vending machine business. You see, AJ, this kind of prints cash, bro. And the margin profile on this is 61%. Now let's pause for a moment and dive into Kenny Finance math to understand what is the margin profile of a business. And a margin is essentially taking the annual cash flow number that you have divided by the annual revenue. And for this example, it has $23,000 of cash flow divided by that $38,000 of annual revenue. And that gives us a 61% cash flow margin. And FYI, that is very impressive, by the way. Now, the next stat, we want to understand what multiple this business is being listed for. And the multiple is taking the purchase price that they're asking, so that $45,000, divided by the annual cash flow that that business generates, which was the $23,000. And that gives us around a 2 times multiple. Now, what does that mean? You're willing to pay 2 times the annual cash flow amount to purchase this business. And what I love about the multiple is it allows for you to benchmark that stat against other similar businesses that have been sold, either in the same area, in the same industry, to showcase if you are over or underpaying for a particular business. So we can then take that 2 times multiple and compare it to other vending machine businesses in Florida that have sold over the last few months, and hopefully see if this is a bargain based on other historical transactions. So why do I think this is a great investment for AJ? Here's my thesis. This is a perfect passive income idea for AJ because it is not that intensive of an operation to run this kind of business. You have the vending machines, you install them in a place that is high traffic, you maybe go once or twice a week or a month to replace the inventory, but in the interim, you're just collecting cash. Maybe you market it, maybe you sort of check and do maintenance, but it's not that intensive to where he needs to spend 9 to 5 hours every single day running this type of vending machine business. So it's more on the passive end for him. So you can keep his regular 9 to 5, install these vending machines, and still collect cash from there. This is pretty genius for him. So that's a really good fit for AJ to purchase a business with his $50,000 income range. Now, if you are also within that income range, I want you to consider what kind of business profile allows for me to find a business that is doing 20, 30 plus of annual cash flow, that allows me to put 20% of my income down, and it's not gonna be that extremely intensive. Because if that is the income range that you're working with, I highly recommend that you keep your 9 to 5, as well as use extra savings to buy yourself a passive-like business cash flow. That's the focus there. Because once you start building your portfolio of businesses or assets and your cash flow just becomes more and more significant, you'll eventually see a point where your investment income and business cash flow is larger than your 9-to-5 income. Then you can start thinking about playing in the next tier of around that $500,000 plus range for buying a business. And that's where Hamilton is. So Hamilton, that's my dog. We travel around the world together. We used to live with each other in Brooklyn. I was the worst roommate in the entire world, but I gave him free smart money moves. He is always DMing me on Instagram, sending me memes as well as ideas for cash flowing businesses that he can buy. Because now he's in a really high income earning job, and he is now considering, with earning under $500,000, is this the right time to purchase himself a cash flowing business that can either replace his 9-to-5 income or build himself a really nice passive portfolio of passive cash flow. So let's try to figure out what's the best fit for Hamilton. And I told him, look, bro, if you're sitting in that income range, the one thing you need to understand is if you're gonna buy, you gotta buy dirty and you gotta buy boring. We're not trying to buy the sexy, high-tech, flashy businesses here. If you really wanna make some nice cash flow, you gotta buy the boring. And I found him a dumpster business. Okay, so Hamilton makes bank, and what I want him to do with that bank is put it in the trash. But I am so dead serious. We found in Massachusetts a business that is doing dumpster and portable restrooms. And this business is on sale for $285,000. This fits within the 20% rule of the down payment and requirements based on his income level, right? So $285,000. And the annual revenue for this business is $275,000. But the cash flow, this cash flow is doing $102,000 per year of cash flow. After all of the expenses, the owner brings home $102,000 of cash flow. And I don't know about you, but I could live off of $100,000. And this means that if he wanted to, he could leave his job and focus solely on this dumpster business if he wanted to. So the margin profile is 37%, and the multiple that they are asking is around 2.8 times multiple. And I like this because it is under the average SMB acquisition multiple, around 3 times. So this one is good margins, good multiple, good recession-resilient, sticky business. I think it's a pretty cool one. But here's my thesis for this one, Hamilton. Listen up, bro. AI is not going to be picking up your trash. AI is not going to be cleaning and installing portable bathrooms. This is a very, very, very essential and recurring revenue business model. And you can buy it for under 3 times. And you can also leave your job and focus on this if you wanted to. And oh yeah, by the way, if you want to keep this job and purchase this business and use that cash flow to grow it, you can invest in sales and marketing to grow your operations, have more trucks. You can also use that $100,000 of cash flow to purchase a second one, a competitor. And then next thing you know it, you're building yourself a larger regional platform of dumpster and portable restroom businesses. You're starting to think a little bit like a holding company entrepreneur like your boy Kenny Finance. And if you guys like how I think and are interested in making very, very, very smart money moves, do me a huge favor and subscribe to the channel. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it means the world to me as well as the rest of the team as we try to get out incredible content on helping you all make smarter financial decisions every single day. But back to the thesis. It is a recession resilient, it is essential, it is at an attractive multiple, and it does really good margins, and there is very clear areas to grow and scale this business. So take everything that you now know as a very savvy business operator, and that 37% margin can then tick up to 40%, then 45, then 50, right? There's a lot of really cool playbooks that you can apply to these small, boring businesses to help improve the margin profile for the business and the growth profile for the company as well. So you owe me lunch for this, bro. So that's my thesis of waste management assets. And if you are curious of hearing more of my weekly deal reviews on actual business listings, every single week, every Friday, I send out a deal review of an actual business listing and let you know if I'm buying or not buying and why with a deep private equity style analysis. And you can check that out in my free weekly newsletter, Tomorrow's Fortune. And you can bang that link down below. But let's move on to Francesca. All right, so who the heck is Francesca? So she is a super high income earning investor in New York City. We're working in the same industry and we both used to work at the same firm. And I'm not pocket watching, but I kind of have a really good gauge of how much money she's bringing in every single year. And let's just say it's in the millions, all right? But she's in a different stage of life. She's married, she has a beautiful dog, she has a great home. She's trying to think about like, what's the legacy building that I can do here when it comes to my business acquisition portfolio? She doesn't want to find something that is incredibly intensive, like running a waste management business or something like that. So let's try to find her something that is passive, that she can leave from generation to generation, and that does appreciate over time and is a sticky, resilient business to own. And with her income range, let's say it's between like $2 to $5 million, I found the perfect asset for her. And we found her some farmland. So I did some digging, and I found all the way in Illinois a hay and straw farm that she could purchase. And this business is listed for $2.3 million for purchase price. And the business is doing $1.2 million of annual revenue. Now the cash flow profile, this one is doing $400,000 of annual cash flow. And that equates to 35% margins. And the multiple on this is a little bit more expensive, is around 5.6 times multiple. And I'll tell you why it's a little bit more of an expensive multiple. You are buying a very, very, very stable and sticky asset, like farmland. Now, the crop that is on this land is hay, which is a key agricultural input. And let me just tell you now, nothing else is going to be really replacing hay anytime soon when it comes to being an ag input into our U.S. food value chain. Plain and simple. So you're buying a very critical piece of U.S. agricultural infrastructure. So for sticky assets like that have stable revenue, stable customers, and don't have that much overhead, you're typically going to have to pay a more premium of a multiple because of how passive and resilient it is. But I think it is incredibly worthwhile for her to look into this because she can pass down farmland from generations to generations. That's baller. But what's my headline thesis on investing in land broadly? Well, I think for a few reasons. Number one, we have a rising population, and we have two, a shrinking availability of U.S. farmland. And what that means is the demand for food has been going up every single year. Now, the supply, the availability of grains and hay and sort of key agricultural inputs is pretty fixed and kind of shrinking because cities are getting bigger and farms and rural areas are getting smaller and smaller. So the supply of land has been going down as well. And what did that do? That increases the prices of farmland for the ag inputs. And if you own a little piece of that value chain, you get to benefit from the appreciation of that supply-demand mismatch. And plus, with everything going on with geopolitical tensions and tariffs, we don't want to rely solely on sourcing our food and our ag inputs from other countries. So we want to prioritize and bolster the U.S. agricultural production ecosystem. In order to do that, there's going to be subsidies, there are going to be tax credits, and things that just overall help benefit U.S. farm owners. That's my thesis. So Francesca, I know you're sitting on some cash. So take some of that cash, use it as a down payment, 20%, to purchase this business that's going for what? $2.3 million. And the next thing you know, you have an appreciating land asset, you have cash flow from your hay, you can also expand into different income streams, like having campgrounds, RV parks, adding more crops, you name it. And then the cool thing is you can pass down your land from generations to generations. That is building yourself a really strong and resilient business portfolio when it comes to agriculture and land. So when I'm at that income level, I'm hopefully going to have me a healthy balance of very, very, very passive income streams like laundromats and vending machines, but then also something that I can get my little bit of hands dirty, like an operating business, like a waste management company that is extremely recession resilient and sticky, but then also have really long-term stable assets like land. And that's like the overall master portfolio for folks that are high income earners that want to build a really strong business acquisition legacy. It's kind of genius, right? And that goes to show that at any income range, you have the potential to buy yourself a cash flowing business. If you have the energy and the scrappiness to find a good asset, if you know how to ask the right questions to ensure that it is a good one, if you are creative enough to find the financing, like SBA and seller financing, you can go out using the 20% rule to go buy yourself a business. So it's not rocket science. It just takes a little bit of work. Now, I know the 20% rule sounds kind of banger, right? You can buy a business with 20% down and use SBA to fund 80% of the purchase price. That sounds kind of cool, but what if I were to tell you that you can take it up a notch even further? And instead of the 20%, you can go all the way down to 0% using a concept called buy now, pay later. Yeah, exactly what you were thinking. That same concept that you guys use to buy Coachella tickets and mattresses, you can use to buy yourself a cash flowing business. And it is using something that I like to call seller financing. And I'll show you guys in this next video how you can use a combination of seller financing and SBA funding to own a business 100% outright with $0 down and use a cash flow to pay off both of those notes. So I'll catch you guys in that next video. And if you enjoyed this, do me a huge favor and bang that like button, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Peace.